welcome to Play Unplugged TV, www.playunplugged.com. I'm your host, Enrico Nardini. I'm here joined with Jeff Yandora of Phantom of the Attic Games, and we're here for the special midnight release of Warhammer 40,000 Dark Vengeance, the limited edition box set. It's out. It's one of the, probably one of the most exciting and anticipated things that has been, highly anticipated and waited for in this warm minute.
Without a doubt. This is a heavyweight impact release.
This wargaming subculture of the total gaming culture, and part of that,
this is a big deal. Yeah,
and part of that I can't help but think is from the GW kind of rumor mill thing, that the fans are ravenous. Their entire sites like Bell of Lost Souls and Daka Daka, they do include other things like War Machine, Malifaux, things like that. But the fans are ravenous for more information, and so rumors pop up, and then a photo from an issue of White Dwarf, and it starts this whole thing generating, and suddenly you have a 50-page thread, all for the passion for this game.
Warhammer 40,000 is still, in my opinion, the 800-pound gorilla of miniature gaming in the cage.
Yeah, and I think that
still commands that respect.
I agree with you. I think that's one of those things, and not that the fans really want to see or hear this. They probably want us to dig right into the box. But
we'll get to that.
I want to go on a tangent a little bit and talk about my experience with Warhammer 40K, because this was my gateway drug to miniature gaming. It was really my first experience in miniature gaming. I'd done other gaming. I'd played D&D and things like that. But I was at a comic book store in Philadelphia when I stumbled across a copy of Rogue Trader, and I bought it. And I didn't know anything about it. I didn't even know what it was.
Well, the cover of that book was pretty amazing.
And that's what got me into it. And I found out that there was a Games Workshop store on South Street in Philadelphia. And so my early game experience was playing Warhammer 40K, and that was the game I got into. I wasn't really into fantasy at the time. I was playing Warhammer 40K, and I was playing it, this Rogue Trader edition. I had an Eldar army, all the books. It was a more skirmishy, more complicated rule set, and it was a lot of fun. And I learned how to paint all these things. It was one of the really neat things was at that time, and I feel like Games Workshop does still try to do this. They really coached you through the hobby.
Yeah, so I think I think they still I think do that, in my opinion.
And it was this was them in their infancy learning how to do that, and so they were very tolerant of my parents kind of dropping me off with a couple bucks to buy a blister pack, bring my paints. And
was the Games Workshop shop?
Yeah, it was. Okay. And it eventually did was I think it was weird. It became a Showcase Comics. And I don't know how how that actually happened.
I think
because.
Games Workshop retreats out of doing retail, and then they get back into it. It's a strange history, but I think there's an ebb and flow there is to it being, their involvement in retail.
Absolutely, but as a GW fan, there have been definitely highs and lows. I think the longer you get in the hobby, I equated this earlier in a conversation with some of the patrons who had come in to purchase this earlier tonight. This idea of being a super fan, and when you love something so much, any little thing that you perceive as an injustice or is not, it gets magnified, and it's kind of now. I don't think I love Star Wars, but I don't love Star Wars the way I think some people are just it encompasses their life. And so I understand the prequels are bad movies, and I don't particularly like them, and I don't think I'm really saying anything controversial by saying that. I actually think it's really turned completely around, and most people just don't like those games. Those movies.
I understand.
But I've gone through my experiences with GW like that too. My kind of love-hate relationship with GW.
Because you're such a fan.
And I think that's why. And so things like the price hike in Australia and Japan that happened, previously. They really I felt that sense of injustice. I didn't want, I was like, why are those people suffering under these ridiculous prices? And so, I participated in GW boycotts before in my life. Which is crazy to say, because I could not be more stoked for this box set.
Games Workshop will welcome you back.
Oh yeah, and I never stopped playing. I never stopped being interested. It was I was like, well, for this period of time, it's the weakest boycott ever. It's for this set period of time, I'm not going to buy anything, just out of the saying.
But then
there's
occasional minor rebellions in the Empire.
Yeah, of course. But in the end, you always come back to the fold. And so, going through all those editions, and second edition, which I felt like was actually a step back from Rogue Trader, and even as a kid, but I wasn't like upset because I was like, well, whatever. It's still, this it was really
was
cool.
that the version with the little Grecians?
Like, yes, with the looked like they were holding a boombox instead of a gun. It was like, it was just, but that was the thing. Plastics. One of the biggest things I think we're going to see in this box set is just like this constant evolution of plastics.
Sure.
And so, but that was one of the first box sets, that Blood Bowl, Mordheim, Warhammer Fantasy, these box sets where they had it's like, hey, here's a ton of miniatures, and those ones were a lot more primitive, I think, than what we're going to see in here. Actually, I know because I've seen the shots, obviously, but it's cool the way the products evolve. But I do want to say unequivocally, I really feel that this is GW's power alley. Is making these box set games. They just know how to pack so much cool stuff into one box set to get you excited, to make you want to get back in the game. And I feel like this is their power alley. This is what they do best. I
agree with you. I think their star sets have always been super strong.
Yeah. And so it's just neat to see the evolution. And, Battle for Skull Pass was awesome. But then, Battle for what was the name of the 40K one? I was going to say Battle for McCrag, but that was the
Assault on Black Reach.
Assault on Black Reach was and this was like you like Battle for Skull Pass. Here's Assault on Black Reach. It's even better.
Sure.
And then they're like, you like Assault on Black Reach? Well, here's Island of Blood, and the miniatures are getting just more detailed and more beautiful. And so we'll take a look at these Dark Vengeance ones, but I have very high hopes. I have high hopes for the models in this set.
Well, Workshop, I think, is the leader in plastic, where plastics going in miniatures.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, the next step, I think, unless you have some memories you'd like to share, is for us to dig into this box. Do you have any cool 40K memories?
I have to confess that I really was a giant Space Hulk freak. So that was really my that's several probably thousands of hours long playing Space Hulk.
Yeah, you wouldn't be the only one, because that game it was one of those rare in our gaming culture thing where a game goes out of print and its value jumps significantly. One of the things that's interesting about the gaming hobby is there are products that do that. But it's not like comic books necessarily, where there are games that I think are maybe rare or not or out of print that they really don't command more value than their retail. But man, Space Hulk, it easily commands twice its value at shows, things like that, still to this day.
And I think I really have to admit, this probably dates my playing of what they've done. Also was a very big fan of their Epic line.
Yeah.
Which I hint, I would like to see maybe a return of some format.
In something more significant than the way it's been produced right now.
Sure. But anyhow, this is neither here or there. Let's see what we got.